Welcome to our Week 5 college football picks. As always, we'll start with our upset pick of the week. Middle Tennessee State going on the road to play Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, a 3-point home favorite. Interesting one here. Florida Atlantic, only one win is against an FCS opponent. Middle Tennessee State, 2 losses to Power 5 schools. Blue Raiders also have a win on the road against Syracuse. Florida Atlantic doesn't have a lot of experience as a favored team. I like the Blue Raiders and Middle Tennessee State outright in this one. The next one up is going to be Northwestern going into Madison to play Wisconsin. Badgers are a 14.5-point favorite. Northwestern got gashed by Duke's running game a few weeks ago. Wisconsin's a more physical team than Duke. I think Taylor and the Wisconsin backs able to run the football. Northwestern keeps it competitive for a little bit. Badgers pull away late because of their running game. I like Wisconsin by 17. The next one up is Iowa going into East Lansing to play Michigan State. Both teams, as is a theme kind of this week, is coming in on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Iowa, tremendous effort against Penn State, even though they've lost, played perhaps their best game of the season. Michigan State played perhaps their worst game of the season in the awful loss to Notre Dame at home. Iowa, really my concern for Iowa in this one is there a hangover effect from what happened at the last second against Penn State? But otherwise, I'm not concerned at all about Iowa. Michigan State's offense didn't look good at all against Notre Dame. I like Iowa by 10 in this one. Unless there's some psychological effects from last week, Iowa should win this football game. The next one up is South Carolina at Texas A&M. This line kind of shifting a little bit. Had to check it. A&M comes in now 8-point home favorites against South Carolina. Texas A&M on the offense kind of gaining confidence as we're progressing through this season. Kellen Mond finding his rhythm at quarterback. That's only going to help out the running game. Travion Williams and Keith Ford have led a very effective Texas A&M rushing attack so far. For South Carolina offensively, they haven't looked the same since Deebo Samuel was lost for the year with an injury. I like A&M to put up points. Without Samuel, South Carolina kind of ill-equipped to exploit a porous A&M passing defense. I like A&M by 13. Vanderbilt goes into the swamp to play Florida. Florida is an 8.5-point home favorite. Vanderbilt, a crushing, demoralizing, just beat down at the hands of Alabama last week. But Florida, if not for 2 busts in the secondary against Tennessee and Kentucky, would be an 0-3 football team. I mean, Tennessee the bust. Kentucky let them score the late touchdown. Poor secondary play. Florida very easily could be 0-3. This is not Alabama for Vanderbilt. Don't let that loss jade you. This is still a strong defense with Ralph Webb running the football and Kyle Shermer trying to make the right decision. I think that helps. I like Vanderbilt outright by 3. Moving ahead now, Ole Miss goes into Tuscaloosa. They'll play Alabama. Alabama, a 28-point home favorite. Kind of feels big. Again, I don't think Alabama's 28 points better than Ole Miss. I do think Alabama's running game is going to have a field day. Ole Miss, not a great run defense. Alabama, Scarborough, Harris, going to have their way probably. Bama probably gets up big. The substitutes come in. Ole Miss maybe a couple touchdown passes late to the big talented receivers they have on the outside. I think that helps Ole Miss. A backdoor cover against Bama's backups. I like Bama, but only by 20 in this one. Moving ahead now, Mississippi State goes in to play Auburn. I believe Auburn is an 8. Let me we'll double check this. The line is shifted. Auburn is now only a 7.5-point home favorite against Mississippi State. Taking a look back at why Mississippi State lost to Georgia. Georgia, an athletic, talented, deep defense. Auburn has all 3 of those things going for it in this one as well. I think Auburn's schematically going to be able to match up with Mississippi State. Nick Fitzgerald in that running game kind of can slow them down a little bit. Also for Auburn, this is big. Cam Petway and Kerryon Johnson will both play in the same game for the first time since last season. I think that helps. Jarrett Stidham slowly finding his way, finding his rhythm. Auburn plays his most complete game of the season here. I have Auburn by 2 touchdowns. Georgia goes on the road to Knoxville where they'll play Tennessee. Georgia is an 8-point road favorite. I believe it's 8. It might be 8.5. But Georgia an 8. I'll check for you. Georgia is an 8. I was correct. They are an 8-point road favorite in Knoxville. Historically, over the last 2 seasons, these teams have played very close, competitive football games that come down to the last couple of plays. Last year you had the Josh Dobbs to Jawan Jennings to answer Georgia's Eason to Ridley pass late. Just an example of what this series has given us. However, Georgia comes in riding high, a beat down of Mississippi State. Tennessee struggled mightily against UMass. Butch Jones had to lash out at the media after that game. I don't like where Tennessee is coming from going into this football game. Yes, it's a rivalry game. Yes, their season probably depends on what happens on Saturday afternoon. But they just don't look good right now. I think Tennessee, too one-dimensional. Georgia can key in on a very talented running back in John Kelly. Georgia's defense helps lead the way. The offense continues to improve. I have Georgia winning in Knoxville by 12. No late second finish here this time. Moving along, Oklahoma State at Texas A&M. The Cowboys 9.5-point favorites at the moment. Opened at 13-point favorites. Kind of bet down. But Oklahoma State, this would be a much tougher game to pick if it was still at 13. At 9.5, unless Mason Rudolph and the Cowboy offense turn the football over 4 times again this week, easy Oklahoma State. I like the Cowboys by 20 in this one. Oklahoma State big in Lubbock. Now, as always, we bring you the game of the week. We're a perfect 4-0 picking the game of the week. This week's edition, Clemson is a touchdown favorite in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. Where do we begin? We'll start right here. It's a night game in Blacksburg, prime time, game day in attendance. Everyone will be ready to go. Fans especially. But, here's the but. I think this matters. But not as much as people assume, because Clemson's been in these hostile environments before. 2 weeks ago, they went in a primetime game, the biggest game in Louisville football history. Primetime, night game, blackout. Clemson shows up and shuts down Louisville. Last year, they had to go into Tallahassee in a huge ACC clash. In a primetime game, at Joe Campbell, Clemson wins the ball game. Clemson's experienced in these situations. They've been here before, and even more so, they're led by defense. Defense travels well. That's going to help Clemson in this one. For Virginia Tech now, how can the Hokies win? Well, we'll look here. Virginia Tech does have a top 30 defense. National, yes, they're a good defense. If they can force Kelly Bryant to make some mistakes, again, they didn't set the world on fire early against BC. Auburn put some pressure on Clemson's offense. Bryant did get banged up in that game, but I think Virginia Tech has the defense to at least make this a competitive football game, kind of limit Kelly Bryant, maybe get some turnovers out of him. I think for Clemson, if they're going to lose this game, it's going to be because Kelly Bryant turns the ball over. If Bryant doesn't turn the ball over, I think Clemson's going to be in a good position to win the ball game. Virginia Tech quarterback, Josh Jackson. One of the reasons people really like the Hokies in this game, they're gaining momentum up the polls in the season because of the play of redshirt freshman Josh Jackson. But I want to go back to what I said a minute ago. Actually, a few seconds ago. Josh Jackson's a redshirt freshman. A redshirt freshman's going to have to perform well in his 4th or 5th game of his career against a Brett Venables defense and a Clemson D-line that's probably the best in all of the country. That's asking a lot. As well as Jackson has played, he hasn't played anything like this Clemson defense. Now we're going to make our pick. Clemson. I like the Tigers. I think Kelly Bryant takes care of the football. Only 1 turnover from Bryant. The Clemson D-line disrupts Josh Jackson. Clemson 20, Virginia Tech 17. We're 4-0 making our game of the week picks. We're rolling with Clemson to try to get the 5-0.